Part 1. The challenge: choose your weakest. Let us test your strength with mercy. The Varnock Dominion's envoy spoke those words with a grin full of jagged teeth, smug and sharp as the words themselves. The declaration echoed through the marble halls of Earth's United Defense Summit, broadcast across dozens of interstellar channels. To the Varnock, this was tradition and offer extended to weak worlds on the verge of conquest. They allowed one duel. 1-9. A ritual of dominance dressed up as mercy. If Earth's champion won, the Varnock would retreat in honor. If they lost, which, of course, they always did, Earth would be annexed without further bloodshed, too. The Varnock, it was a game to Earth. It was an opportunity. The room fell quiet after the transmission ended. Commanders and scientists exchanged tense looks. The President leaned forward. "We're not actually considering this ritual," she asked. "Absolutely," General Cortez said, folding his arms. "But not for the reason they think." Earth was no stranger to underestimation. Since first contact, most of the galaxy had treated them as a primitive species barely worthy of attention. It was an attitude Earth didn't argue with. Let them believe. Let them think humanity was backward, fragile, unrefined. It made what came next so much easier. A week later, Earth responded, "We accept your challenge. We will send our least dangerous combatant." The galaxy laughed. The Varnock, delighted, prepared their champion. Barachthal was one of their best genetically enhanced gladiator who had never known defeat. 8 feet tall, armored in fused bone, wielding a plasma halberd as effortlessly as a child twirling a stick, the duel would take place aboard Arena Thatnine, a neutral combat station orbiting a dead moon. It was equipped with energy shielding, environmental controls, and broadcast nodes beaming the event to every major system. It would be a spectacle, and Earth sent her. She wasn't what anyone expected. No scars, no armor, no visible augmentations. She wore a flight suit with a small Terran Republic emblem stitched at the shoulder. Her name tag simply read, Alin. The Varnock delegation erupted in laughter the moment she stepped onto the platform. "This is mockery," shouted Barachthal. "You insult the right with this child." The human envoy, Ambassador Caro, smiled without humor. "She is the one we chose," he said. "You asked for our least dangerous. She's never held a weapon, never served in a combat role. She teaches fitness classes on Earth." Murmurs spread like fire. Even the spectators, aliens of every species gathered in the arena, stands began to murmur with amusement and disgust. Some thought it a trick. Others saw it as cowardice. A handful whispered a more terrifying possibility. What if the humans were being honest? Evelyn stood on the dueling platform, silent. She was calm, too calm. Her breathing slow, controlled. Her stance relaxed but rooted. There was no bravado, no warrior's rage, no fear either. Just focus. The announcer called for the match to begin. The rules were simple. No weapons, no assistance, no armor. Victory by incapacitation. Barachthal flexed his claws and snarled. "You are no warrior," he growled. "You will scream." Afa didn't respond. She just blinked, slowly, and tilted her head. The duel began with a roar. The Varnock charged forward like a meteor. The arena rumbled under his steps. He raised his arm to strike a blow that had crushed titanium skulls before, but Ava moved not fast, not inhumanly so, but with a grace that made her movement feel unnatural. Barachthal's swing missed her completely. She pivoted on one foot, danced past his flank, and tapped him gently on the side of the neck. Barachthal stumbled, his legs wobbled. His second strike never came. His body seized. Ava stepped behind him and tapped another point on his spine. His knees buckled. Silence swept the arena. He fell, not from a strike, not from damage, but like a puppet with its strings cut. The medics rushed forward. No wounds, no trauma. Yet Barachthal didn't respond. Muscles limp. Eyes staring, Evelyn exhaled, bowed politely, and walked off the platform. Ambassador Caro turned to the stunned crowd. "We told you," he said, voice flat. "She's not dangerous, not even close." And the galaxy watching from a million worlds shivered, because for the first time they realized they hadn't seen Earth's power. They'd seen its restraint. Part 2. The Arena Thatnine was unlike any combat ground in the galaxy, suspended in geostationary orbit around the desolate moon of Ulvaris III. The ring-shaped station had been specifically designed for first dual rights between rival civilizations. Transparent shielding enclosed the open arena at its core, while hovering observation decks wrapped in polished obsidian gave galactic delegates a prime view of the blood sport. This wasn't a battlefield, it was a coliseum, a place where champions, made legends, met their end. As Evelyn entered the dueling ring, the crowd responded not with cheers but laughter. Every species, every delegation, every smug warrior or curious scientist looked at her with amused disbelief. She didn't belong here, they thought. She had no armor, no cybernetic limbs, no exotic weaponry humming with danger. Even her posture was wrong, too casual. It's relaxed. She looked like she was taking a walk in the park. Her opponent, Grakth, stood across the arena like a living nightmare. Towering at 8 feet tall, his body was a hybrid of natural and engineered terror. His skin was plated in bone armor, hardened by evolutionary cruelty and bioforging. Spikes ran down his forearms like serrated knives. His eyes glowed an acidic yellow beneath a retractable visor, and his breath came out in rhythmic growls. A trained psychotactic technique meant to intimidate, and still, Ava didn't flinch. Her movements were minimal, gentle stretches of her arms, slow rotations of her shoulders, the calm focus of someone preparing not for combat, but meditation. She didn't look at Brerick with fear or even aggression, just observation. The Varnic announcer's voice boomed through the arena. By right of single combat, these champions stand as the chosen of their kind. Victory by incapacitation. Begin when the gong sounds. The gong rang like the scream of a dying star. Brerick moved instantly. He closed the distance in a blur, far faster than his bulk suggested possible. A hammering downward strike from his left arm could have crushed a carapatched Raktal warrior. Should have ended the fight right there. It didn't. Ava wasn't there. She had moved no flourish, no burst of energy, just a simple shift of weight and angle. The strike passed through empty air. She flowed around it like wind avoiding a tree. Brerick snarled and swept sideways. Ava ducked under it effortlessly. She was close now, too close. With one hand, she gently placed her fingers on the side of his neck, tapped, then she turned behind him, her steps ghost-like. Another touch, this time between his shoulder. Bladestop tapped Brak. His movement faltered. The audience grew quiet. There was no blast, no flare of energy, nothing to make sense of what they were seeing. But something was wrong. Brerick grunted. His legs twitched. He turned slowly, eyes wide, confusion blooming across his monstrous face. He tried to swing again. He couldn't. His body wasn't listening anymore. His legs gave out first, then his arms slumped to his sides. He collapsed in a heap face first, limbs splayed, like a puppet dropped from a great height. Ava stood over him, silent, breathing evenly. Crowd was stunned. Even the announcer hesitated, unsure if it was real. Then the medics scrambled into the arena. Scans flickered across their portable holoscreens. Vitals were stable, bones unbroken, brain activity normal. But something was very wrong. Brock was paralyzed. There was no injury, no poison, just complete neuromuscular shutdown. One Varnock. Medic whispered to another. She didn't hurt him. She just turned him off. Ava bowed, just once, then calmly walked off the platform and rejoined her. Delegation, the silence in the arena was suffocating. Ambassador Caro waited a moment, then addressed the stunned spectators. "You requested we send our least dangerous combatant," he said, "and we did. She has never served in a combat unit. She's a civilian, a yoga instructor, actually." He let that hang in the air like a loaded weapon. "She knows anatomy, pressure points, breath control, balance, that's all. Just never killed anyone." He leaned closer to the mic. Imagine if we'd sent someone who had. Gasps rippled. Through the observers, some left their seats in a hurry. Others activated private comms, issuing silent, urgent orders. News of the match was already spreading. Streamed to billions across the galaxy, the Varnock delegation stood. Frozen, they had sent a Titan, Earth had sent a teacher, and the teacher won in seconds. In that moment, the Varnock realized something chilling. They had asked for Earth's weakest, and even that had been far too much. Part 3. The Panic. The moment Ava Lynn stepped off the dueling platform. Earth's delegation vanished into the secure wings of Arena Thatnine, leaving behind only silence and disbelief. The Varnock War delegation remained frozen, their expressions normally unreadable under their bone masks, visibly shaken. Their champion Baractal still lay where he had fallen, not dead, not unconscious, but inert, breathing, blinking, alive, yet incapable of motion. His limbs would not obey, his tongue could not speak. It was as though his body had been severed from his will. Medical drones and Varnock biotechs worked feverishly around him. Neural scans were clean. No signs of trauma, poison, or foreign infiltration. Brain activity was optimal, heartbeat stable. But Barrick couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't respond to commands. He was aware, but helpless. What happened to him? One of the Varnock lieutenants demanded, his voice tight with fear. Did she use tech? Chemicals? Implants? The lead medic looked up from his tablet, eyes wide. No tech, no nanites, no biological residue, no damage. Then how she just touched him? Panic set in. Across the arena, alien diplomats began to murmur. Some recorded logs in real time. Others messaged their homeworlds, urging caution. A few, like the Drelnari, who had always suspected humanity of hiding something, simply stood and walked out, faces pale. In the VIP observation deck, the counselor of the Threxian Union whispered, "That wasn't a soldier." "No," replied his aide. "That was a warning." Back aboard the Terran diplomatic vessel TSV Beacon, Ava Lynn sat quietly in the debriefing chamber, sipping tea. Her hands were steady. Her heartbeat was unchanged. The Earth delegation didn't speak for several moments. Finally, Ambassador Caro looked up from the console with a small smile. "You did well," he said. Ava nodded. He was stiff, predictable, over-reliant on power. "You could have ended him permanently," Cortez said from across the room. "I didn't have to," she replied. That message, Caro said, just shook the bones of half the galaxy. Meanwhile, back in the arena infirmary, Brock's condition remained unchanged. He was transported to the Varnock command vessel under full security. Dozens of Varnock warlords gathered to observe him. They shouted, they threatened, they tried to provoke him to move. Some even resorted to pain triggers, and nothing worked. For the first time in his life, Brockthal cried. Silently, a single tear fell from the corner of his eye. He was aware but unable to act. The Varnock Dominion did not take kindly to humiliation. What had happened was not merely defeat, it was collapse. Their pride had been built on invincibility. Their military doctrine assumed physical dominance over all other species. That belief had just been annihilated by a soft-spoken human with no weapons and no formal combat record. Worse still, the match had been streamed live. Dozens of minor factions now questioned their Varnock treaties. Colonies whispered rebellion. Rival empires began calculating weaknesses. The Varnock High Command erupted into chaos. Some demanded retaliation. Others screamed for immediate war against Earth. But the more rational among them, those who had watched Ava move, fell silent. One by one, they accessed intelligence feeds. They reviewed Ava's background. No military training, no government affiliation, no history of violence. Then came the question no one wanted to ask, if she could do that. What about Earth's real warriors? In the days that followed, the Varnock sent covert agents to probe deeper into Earth's military records. What they uncovered shattered what little pride remained. There were entire regiments of humans trained in joint martial technical warfare, units that specialized in low-exertion neutralization, doctrines that focused on disabling entire platoons with minimal engagement, psychological shock tactics, zero-kill zone control, electromagnetic silent warfare, things the Varnak had no names for. They learned about special forces, divisions like Ghost Team Epsilon whose members could disappear mid-battle using active light matter refraction cloaks and reappear behind enemy commanders. And worst of all, the Argo Protocol, a project redacted even from Terran files, but rumored to involve operatives who trained under artificial gravity so intense could crush bone by walking. Ava Lynn's name did not appear on any of these lists because she didn't need to. She wasn't trained for war. She was a test case, a variable, a baseline. And she still broke their best. By the end of the week, the Varnak Dominion entered a communications blackout. No public statements, no formal withdrawal, follow-up challenge, just silence. The galaxy noticed, because when the Varnak, the most aggressive species in 5 sectors, we treated without a word. Everyone else started asking a terrifying question. What happens when Earth sends someone who's actually trying? Part 4. The records of the Galactic Intelligence Networks went into overdrive. What the Varnak refused to say publicly? Every major power in the galaxy already suspected the defeat of Brarukthal wasn't an accident, wasn't luck. It was deliberate, controlled, precise, and that terrified them. Far more than if he'd been vaporized. So the galaxy started digging into Earth, into their military, into their culture, into her. Who was Ava Lynn? The first wave of intel was almost disappointingly mundane. She was from Vancouver, Canada. Civilian. Age 29, no criminal record, no military service. A degree in kinesiology, taught yoga, dance, and breath therapy. Ran a modest studio that doubled as a rehabilitation center for veterans with PTSD. And that, the analysts realized, was the nightmare. Because Ava Lynn had never trained to kill. She hadn't trained for war, or combat, or planetary defense. She had simply mastered understanding the body, its joints, its nerves, its rhythms. She knew where to press, how to shift weight, how to breathe, to stay grounded while others panicked. And she had used that knowledge to disable a warrior bred for destruction without violence, without effort. That wasn't combat dominance. That was controlled in a data vault deep inside the orbital research citadel of the Zentari Archival Collective. An AI named Mir-76 correlated Ava Lynn's movements with historical Terran martial arts. The AI pinged 98.7% match with a discipline known as Aikido, a forgotten Earth art, peace-focused, designed to use an opponent's force against them. Emphasis on flow, not strikes. Redirection, not aggression. Mir-76 filed its report under non-combat threats. High concern? But the findings triggered something. Else something buried. Ava Lynn, the peaceful civilian, wasn't even close to Earth's apex. She was the bottom of the chain. So researchers looked up the ladder. That's when the galaxy started to panic first. They found the Terran Special Forces archives. The files were incomplete, sanitized, redacted. Still, enough leaked to raise red flags across half the spiral arm. Names like LT Mira Reeve, who once led a platoon across a mountain range under fire for 11 days with no supply lines and 0 casualties. Sergeant Duran, nicknamed the Butcher of Kalos V, who walked out of a collapsed city holding the remains of an enemy commander's helmet and nothing else. Corporal Juno Hark, never officially deployed, but noted in reports as having eliminated an entire forward base during a training exercise. These weren't myths. These were documented cases, but worse still, they weren't even in Earth's top-tier command units. Then came the whispers of Earth's Project Apex, files locked behind security measures that even the Men-3 data weavers couldn't crack. The only clue came from an intercepted human transmission. That read, Ava passed. Control Tier 1. No aggression profile. Let's never use Tier 4. Governments held emergency meetings. If Ava was Control Tier 1, what did Tier 4 look like? What kind of human required classification levels? And if the baseline was capable of paralyzing a war beast in seconds, how much more devastating were the soldiers Earth kept classified? Varnak officials, meanwhile, ordered the immediate fortification of all border colonies. Quietly they reached out to other empires for military cooperation agreements. Desperate to form a buffer, but few responded, because most had arrived at the same chilling conclusion. The Varnak had provoked a species that had trained restraint to an art form. Earth revealed wasn't just one champion's skill. It was a philosophy. They didn't kill because they didn't have to. They didn't dominate because they didn't need to. And if ever Earth did choose to unleash its full force, there would be no warning, just silence. Back on Earth, Evelyn finished brewing tea in her studio. A soft chime alerted her to a message from the United Defense Command. Excellent work. Officially archived as resolved with minimal impact. You are now on indefinite reserve. She sighed and set the kettle down. On the wall was a photograph of her and 6 others, smiling. Standing barefoot on a wooden floor, all wearing the same white GI, written beneath the image in elegant black ink, Tier 1, balance. Never the first strike, always the final one. Outside the studio, the stars shifted, and across the galaxy. They watched Earth not with curiosity, but with growing fear, because they hadn't seen the edge of humanity, they'd only seen its shadow. Part 5. The vanishing. There was no announcement, no press release, no victory speech, just silence. The Varnak Dominion, once known for broadcasting their triumphs across subspace in violent displays of pride, went completely dark following the duel. No retaliation was launched. No message of apology or surrender was sent. Their entire diplomatic front vanished like a tide retreating before an unseen storm. Arena Thatnine, where it all had happened, was scrubbed clean. The recording of the duel was pulled from most public networks, but it was too late. The galaxy had already seen it. The moment the Varnak's greatest warrior collapsed without a bruise became the most viewed file in interstellar history, and the galaxy had drawn its own conclusions. Earth had sent someone who wasn't a soldier, who didn't want to fight, who never raised her voice, and that person had broken a Titan. What would humanity send next? In the shadowy depths of political war rooms and intelligence cells, something shifted. For centuries, power had been calculated in ship counts, weapon yields, territorial control. Now, a new metric emerged: Terran combat threshold. It was theoretical and terrifying. Analysts attempted to model it. If Ava Lynn, a civilian, could neutralize a Varnak Prime without violence, then what were Earth's elite capable of? What were their actual intentions? One report from the Drelnari Strategic Bureau put it plainly: the human doctrine appears not to revolve around overwhelming force, but overwhelming choice. They have mastered control to such an extent that they only show what they must. A duel was not a warning of strength. It was a demonstration of restraint. And that, the report concluded, makes them the most dangerous species we have ever encountered. Back on Earth, life went on. In a quiet district of Vancouver, Evelyn returned to her modest studio. She resumed teaching. Her students, humans and a few aliens alike, noticed nothing different. She adjusted posture, offered calm corrections, and reminded everyone to breathe. Only those in the know understood what she'd done. Even fewer understood what it meant. The Terran United Defense Command issued no further statement. Her name was never mentioned in official records. There was no medal, no parade, only a single line in a classified military log. Subject: Ava Lynn. Classification: Tier 1. Response: sufficient. Galactic effect: contained. Act: no further action necessary. Meanwhile, aboard the Varnak flagship Ruthless Accord, Marshal Corrin stood alone in the observation chamber, watching the stars drift slowly past. He hadn't spoken in days. His hands trembled not from age. but from the memory of what he'd witnessed. A single human had walked into their chosen arena and undone everything they believed about power. Corin had reviewed the footage over and over. She hadn't attacked. She hadn't struck. She had simply moved, flowed, touched, and destroyed the very concept of Varnak invincibility. What haunted him most was her face. Calm, soft, almost kind. He knew, deep in his core, that if Earth had wanted to destroy them that day, they could have. They hadn't. That mercy terrified him more than war ever could. He issued a final, silent order to his generals. We will never provoke the humans again. Let them believe we have forgotten. Let us be small. Let us be silent. The order was obeyed, without question. Across the galaxy, similar conversations took place. In the high citadels of the Lythri, in the neural halls of the Spinal Congress, in the floating city minds of the Ervil leaders asked a single question. What do humans really want? And no one could answer, because Evelyn had not revealed a tactic. She had revealed a truth. Humans were not conquerors, not monsters, not heroes. They were aware of their strength, their weakness, now the choices they made, and they had chosen deliberately. Terrifyingly to be merciful, but that choice could change at any time. Back in the studio, Ava finished closing for the evening. The lights dimmed. The windows reflected the soft amber of Vancouver's skyline. She stood alone for a moment, watching the city breathe. Then she walked to the back wall, where a simple frame held a single sheet of paper. It read, "When the choice is peace, move like water. When the choice is war, strike like thunder. Till then, be still." She exhaled slowly, and behind her, unnoticed in the night sky, the stars above Earth blinked, one by one, as ships far away recharted their routes, and entire civilizations rewrote their doctrines, because the galaxy had finally understood humanity did not fight for dominance. They waited and let the universe ask the wrong question.